Can I ask a little bit about the role of feedback in this all?
Yeah.
Because it's obviously good that we have the personal tutor system in place, and where we think about personalization, or that we have learning analytics where we can measure their engagement and so on. But there is this whole problem. It is actually a problem, isn't it? In a way, not even a challenge, around feedback, not just assessment feedback, but feedback in general.
Yeah.
How do you think that sort of contributes to progression and
okay, well, let's talk about what that problem is, or what the elements of that problem are first of all. You know, I mean, so the starting point is the assumption that feedback is a really, really important part of the learning experience. That students do a piece of work, they get, or students do something. We'll keep it slightly wider than just assessment. Students do something, they get feedback on it, they understand, they act on that feedback, and they then do something better. I think the relationship between feedback and performance is actually a really, really fuzzy relationship. It's not linear, it's not straightforward, it's not a step by step. It's a really fuzzy thing, and I'm not 100% convinced of the relationship between feedback and performance. So that's kind of point one. Point two is that we also need to recognise that there are two completely separate mythologies of feedback going on within universities and within business schools. That there's the academic mythology, or the mythology of academics, which is about the value of feedback, which is a very rounded view of feedback. That if I tell you in the classroom that, you might want to think about that, or you might want to go look at this, when a student stops us in the corridor and asks us a question, we're giving them feedback, versus a student mythology that actually isn't. That's not feedback. Is what you tell me is the way. Is feedback is how you justify the mark that you've given me. So there's
pure assessment.
They see it solely in terms of assessment, you know, and that's perfectly reasonable, because that's the way that they get guided to think about feedback. The NSS lumps together a lot of stuff that we do, lump together assessment and feedback. We don't do learning and feedback. We don't do, so that's kind of logical. Third issue around the problem is a language issue. We academics speak in their own very peculiar academic language, and we kind of assume that the people we're talking to understand that. So we will talk to students and we will tell them, your work isn't critical enough, it's not analytical enough, you haven't synthesized very well, your work is far too descriptive, and a significant group of students will have no idea what it is that you're talking about. And you then look at their experience and say, well, when was being critical explained? When was being analytical explained? And we might be able to point to some slides, you know, in induction week that explained it, but that's not helping them to understand. So those kind of issues. Then coupled with that is you've got this volume issue. How, if you've got a whole bunch of assessments coming in, how do you get something effective? And there is often, I think, a mythology around that, and an assumption of more the better. You know, that if I get 2 sentences, I'm not getting a lot of feedback, and I'm not getting very useful feedback. If I get half a page or a page of comments on my assignment or whatever it is, I'm getting a huge amount of feedback, and therefore it's very, very useful. I think all of the evidence around this is inconclusive. All of the evidence is my suggestion is that actually what you really have is a very, very fuzzy relationship between feedback and performance. And what we have to recognise is that if we then come back to, say, assessment, then there's a whole bunch of question marks around assessment. So where feedback, I think, works well is in certain types of assessment where you can build up to the assessment. That kind of, often you see it in accounting, the kind of drill and skill element to it. That if you've got to construct or do a technical accounting question, then actually the way to do that technical accounting question is to do lots and lots and lots of practice questions, get feedback on those practice questions and do it. That's, I think, you know, from use a sporting analogy, that's very much what I would see as being a closed skill approach. So if you're looking at at how a golfer swings, if you're looking at how a rugby player kicks, if you're looking at how a tennis player serves, then that's how they learn to do those kind of things. It's repetition, it's rehearsal, it's getting intimate feedback around small details that allow them to improve on that. And then one of the problems, and that tends to be the model of feedback that students expect. You know, I do something, I get very, very specific feedback on that thing.
It would be so, for instance, you're giving the sporting example. Hold your thought. It would be, let's say they hit the ball, but they don't hit it hard enough to go over the net.
Yeah.
Tennis. So if I would say, well, my feedback would be, you're not hitting the ball hard enough.
Yeah.
Would the person know what that means? Or would the person, is that similar to where you say you're not critical enough?
I think there is no. I think we're talking about two slightly different things. So if you take the tennis example, the reason why I picked the serve is because the serve for a tennis player is going to be the same every time the tennis player serves. Yeah, they might serve it to a different point, but the serve is the serve is the serve. Once you've hit that serve, then suddenly you're in a dynamic situation where actually you're going to do something that you don't know how your opponent is going to hit the ball back, what direction you might have an idea what direction it's going to go in, and there's a whole set of things that are suddenly dynamic where that closed skill approach might not always work, although there is a technique that you would want to develop. To bring that into university work is Mike, so here's a question. Is if I'm doing an accounting problem, I fully understand why I need to have lots and lots of feedback on that, because I'm going to do that accounting problem again. Yeah, and I'm going to keep doing it again and again and again until I become good at it. If I'm doing an essay, and if I pass that essay, I'm never going to do that essay again. That the skill I might need, or the technique I might need to do a midterm assignment, which is where I get to do lots and lots of research, is a completely different skill to what I might need in an end of module exam or an end of module group presentation. What is the point of giving someone huge amounts of feedback on a task they're never going to do again, is kind of point number one. Point number two is well, where is the learning if I'm telling them everything? You know, if I'm saying this is what you're good at, this is the strength of this assignment, this is the weakness of this assignment, then you're just imbuing a whole set of passive students. Where's the active learning involved in being told everything that you need to know about it? When actually maybe what we should be thinking about with feedback is, here are the resources that you might need in order to work that out yourself. Because I think that's where powerful learning takes place, is not where it's instructional, but actually where the individual has to take responsibility for it. So
you call it inquiry-based feedback.
Inquiry-based feedback, yeah. So rather than say to students, so as an example, what we do with inquiry-based feedback is we give students examples of really good assignments, and we say to them, well, you work out why that's better than yours. Yeah, and to do that, you're going to have to read both assignments, you're going to have to compare both assignments, but actually there's going to be some learning involved in that, because you have to do something yourself.